Hello, I'm Scott Francis, the technology evangelist for our ScanSnap products here in the US. Thank you for joining today's webcast. And as we gear up today, I'd like to introduce our speakers, but first I'd like to get some housekeeping items before we start today's presentation. So first, on the webinar platform on the right side of your screen, you're going to see some buttons. You'll see one for QA. This is where you can enter your questions for today's presenters. The second one will be for polls. Throughout today's webinar, I'm going to be launching some poll questions, but if you want to access them at any point during the webcast, you can click on the polls button. And also, we have a resources button. So we've got some documents from SmartVault, from myself, for ScanSnap that you can see. And of course, after today's webcast, we'll be sending out a link with today's recording. So look for that after today's webcast. Now, the most important housekeeping item, at the end of today's webcast, we're going to have a drawing for a free ScanSnap iX1600 scanner. So during the QA session, we'll be selecting one of the attendees. So make sure to stay on the webcast until the very end, and we'll be doing that drawing. So having said that, I'm excited to announce and introduce today's speakers. First, we've got Alex Hayter. She is the marketing director at SmartVault. Alex, welcome to today's webcast.
Thanks for the introduction, Scott. Really looking forward to learning a bit more and chatting to both you and Dawn.
Awesome. Thanks for joining today's webcast. And our next guest speaker doesn't really need an introduction. She is a legend in the accounting space. Dawn Brolin, she is the CEO of Powerful Accounting. Dawn, thank you so much for joining today's webinar.
Of course. Thank you certainly for having me here. I love talking about SmartVault. I love talking about the ScanSnap scanner because those are two tools of mine that allow me to work less and make more. That's my goal, is to be as productive as possible. I wish people would call tax season productive season instead of busy season, because I don't like to be busy. I like to be productive, because if I don't have to be in this office, I don't want to be. And SmartVault actually allows me to do exactly that. So excited to pass on some real life stories and the way my firm works with the ScanSnap scanner and our best practices with SmartVault today. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. Well said. All right. Well, let's look at today's agenda. So, today's agenda is really about that paper to digital paradox. We know that digital documents are the best and most efficient way to make your organization run well. But we also know that paper is going to come into your accounting practice. It's a simple fact of life. Paper isn't the problem, but the storage and management of paper is a huge issue. And the tools on today's webcast, SmartVault and ScanSnap, can solve that problem for you. So we're going to talk about that solution, but more importantly, we're going to hear from Dawn, one of your peers, about how her accounting firm really makes it a productive season instead of just a busy season. And of course, we're going to hear from you as well. So make sure to use the QA section at any point during the broadcast, and we'll be having your questions at the end. And of course, we're going to have that drawing for a free ScanSnap iX1600, as well as a discount on the ScanSnap iX1600 as well, that you can use and that you can also send to your customers to allow them to do document scanning at their company so they can send you high quality digital images. All right, let's jump into today's presentation, and we're going to start with a poll question. So we'd like to know, what tax preparation tool do you use? So you can see that here on the screen, and let's hear from you about what are you currently using. All right, we're seeing responses come in already, and we'll give it a couple of seconds before we highlight the results.
I happen to be a SmartVault user, just throwing it in there. That's just me.
Awesome. All right. So far we've got some responses in. Let's see, we've got a lot. I'm using either Lacert or Pro Series from Intuit. We're seeing some Pro Connect and some others. Drake might be one of those, or CCH. Well, great. I think we're getting a fairly good representation. So I'm going to go ahead and close this question, and we will move on and talk about that paper to digital paradox. So Alex, I'd like to bring you up on the virtual stage, and let's talk about the paper challenge.
Thank you, Scott. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the challenge that you as accountants face with moving to a digital workflow in what might be a traditionally paper-based industry. So what is the challenge? It's from many of the conversations that I've had across the years with a lot of our customers and accountants here in the US, it does seem that a large proportion are aiming to be as fully digital as possible. However hard you might try, though, I think there'll always be paper documents that do continue to persist, at least in the short term. Now, I don't think you need to worry too much about that. Yes, it probably feels like every time you read an article in the industry press or you watch a webinar that's telling you you need to be 100% digital and 100% paperless. I get that. Digital is great, but it's not always feasible for everyone due to a variety of digital readiness, especially with your clients. So the real reality is, how do you incorporate paper into a digital workflow? So not talking about having to eradicate paper completely, just making it part of that streamlined way of working that you're now used to. So, of course, a challenge of paper is that it can often make you inefficient, and these inefficiencies will add up over time. So, whether that's manually sorting, filing, retrieving documents, it really all does add up. So it's worth focusing on saving time in some of these key areas just to maintain that streamlined workflow. And, that is what we're going to be talking about today. Thanks, Scott. So why is it that paper persists? So I think a part of the challenge is that your clients will naturally vary in their digital readiness. So, for example, some might not be able to access the internet. Some might not be comfortable using it. People's comfort levels do vary. Maybe their systems are old, or, they just don't want to do it. I'm sure there are people on this call that can relate to that. But honestly, I don't think it matters, and I don't think you should be rejecting someone who's, on paper, a perfect client just because they're unable to fully adhere to the digital process. So we're here on this webinar now to show you how to streamline that digitization of paper documents easily and quickly. So, perhaps getting to a point where, 95% of your customers are fully digital and only 5% aren't is a much more achievable goal. Dawn, I just wanted to bring you in. Do you think that's a realistic goal or aim for accountants out there?
Yeah, 100%. I think for those of us who, we understand there's not going to be every single client isn't going to be complying 100% with how we want them to communicate with us, with how they want us to receive their documents. And they may mail in documents, they may drop off documents. And I'm actually working with a client of another firm. I'm trying to help this firm get going. Actually, they just moved to SmartVault, and, helping them understand that, yes, right now you're 100% paper, your clients are 100% paper. That's the way you've always done it. That's the way, but you're ready to make a change. And so what I find is that just because the client isn't a paperless client doesn't make them a bad client. But what you can do as the firm and understand that that doesn't mean that you can't be 100% paperless. And when I say that, I mean a client drops off their papers, they get dumped immediately into my X1600. They get dumped in there, scanned, they're up in SmartVault, ready to go. And so now I may take those papers, and one of the things we actually ask our clients during our organizer process is we ask them a question. Do you want your documents returned, original documents returned to you? I might have 3 clients that I actually give them back their paper documents, maybe 3 out of over 200. So the percentage that you're referring to is absolutely accurate. And I think that we can become 100% paperless in that our storage is in a paperless manner. Okay, we can do that, knowing that the clients won't all be on board with that, and that's okay. Because we all signed our PTINs as we're trying to get ready for the next season, where we sign our PTINs and we agree to the fact that we are securely storing paper for our clients in a very secure manner. And with in SmartVault, I know Alex will talk a little bit about this, about SmartVault and the security level that they are adhere to, and go through audits for and do all of those things to protect us and our clients, like we state we did in our PTIN when we agree to our PTINs. And so, again, I just find that for me, if I need Nicole to work on something, or somebody, Tracy's looking for something, if it's just sitting on my desk, it's doing no good for the firm. That paperwork, that documentation, because we are all remote at Powerful Accounting, has to get up in there, up into the system. So for example, my tax partner, Keith, I've got a tax return and I'm like, I can't figure out this one thing. And he's like, okay, upload the source paperwork. I upload them. He's on the other end of the phone. Okay, got him. Perfect. Let me open it up. Let's talk through this. So that he lives in Florida, but also sometimes comes to Connecticut. We're not worried about being in person. We can do everything through Zoom and reviewing things and doing all this stuff. And again, paper's going to be there, but we can make ourselves as paperless as possible.
Thanks, Dawn. I think that's really insightful. So really appreciate that. Thank you. So we'll move a little bit on to the real impact of this. And, the real impact is the time that you're spending, manually filing and retrieving documents. It really all adds up. Of course, we do know the space and cost it takes to store paper documents too. But it's also worth thinking a little bit around what would happen if the place that you're storing documents was subject to a natural disaster, a fire, was flooded. We hear these stories time and time again from accountants, from our customers across the US, who might be, for example, storing paper documents in their garage, which floods. They lose everything to water damage. You don't have to worry about that if you're digital, if you've digitized all your paper. Another point is the impact of security and compliance. So as Dawn just touched on, SmartVault is SOC 2 compliant. What that means is that we have a third party, an independent third party, come and audit our business. And they'll evaluate our ability to securely manage customer data. And, we have that accreditation. They've given us a big tick for that. So, you can rely on us to protect that data for you. And we actually also provide for accountants free WISP templates and compliance documentation for you to use as part of your SmartVault subscription. So, that's helping you reduce your risk factor for cybercrime and keeping client data safe. Another point worth touching on is, when you're sending paper documents, the time it really takes for clients to respond via paper compared to digitally is massive. So you also get staff frustrations around this as well, and a much more difficult workflow to implement. So it really is important to digitize and move paper into a digital workflow really as quickly as possible. And these are all issues, worth noting. And as I said before, I'm not saying you need to be 100% paperless. Just looking at those inefficiencies, or efficiencies, I should say, with processing that paper really as quickly as possible and getting it right into your normal workflow is really, really going to be key. Dawn, how do you approach working with clients who are tech savvy and rely on paper documents?
Yeah, we definitely lead with our processes, and I love that you mentioned that, because it's your processes that need to be followed. So number one, let's just start with that. If you don't have a process, no one's going to follow it because you don't have one. If you have, and I've done this haphazard where you're like, okay, I'll be out to dinner or something, or out shopping or whatever, and I see someone, they're like, oh, Dawn, I have my documents in my car, let me give them to you. That's not the process, right? Or even just a client or some potential client saying, hey, Dawn, I want you to do my tax return this year. And for me to say, oh, let me just give you my cell phone number, and just, shoot me a text and we'll figure it out. That is breaking my process. My process is, you want to work with me? Okay, no problem. You need to call Tracy. Tracy handles the onboarding. Those paper documents that you have, it's possible they could scan those and get them into SmartVault, which is what the majority of our clients, I don't even remember the last time someone dropped off a tax return to me that was going to be a new client. Tracy will give that person a call and say, hey, I'm sending you a link to SmartVault. You need to upload your prior year tax return in order for Dawn to give you a quote. So if we lead with the technology and we lead with the way that we operate our business, we can always shift in the event that a client's like, well, I don't have a scanner and I don't know how to do that. And they still have a flip phone. Like, those kind of people are still out there. And we'll still work with them. It's not like they're bad clients, but at the same time, we still always want to lead with the technology, and then we see where that client fills in. And we also use that in some capacities as a good screening opportunity. If we know that there's somebody we get a client from Florida, for example, it isn't going to make much sense for them to mail documents to us if they're 100% paper people. For powerful accounting, that doesn't make sense. So it helps me vet out potential clients that we may not want to deal with, who are so disorganized, and we're just not equipped to deal with madness and chaos. So that's just, again, that's where all of us, every one of us, need to figure out what that ideal client profile is, so that we can make adjustments and shifts in a case where you're like, you're dropping off shoeboxes still. Why is that happening? And I love Eric Green says it best. I am not Staples and I am not Kinko's. So if you got to come to us as if you're going to Staples or Kinko's, they will also charge you for handling scanning and printing and copies and things like that. Have you ever walked out of Staples with a free copy of something that you submitted for them to print for you? They don't do that. So why should we? And so those are just some of the things and the considerations as you think through your process, as what are we willing to tolerate, and where does that toleration end? And I think that those are some boundary settings that we all need to embrace. And there's no better time than now to make that mind shift and set yourself up for success for this upcoming season. And we'll talk about moving to and from and those kind of things in a little bit.
Totally agree. Totally agree, Dawn. I'm not a fan of madness and chaos. Sorry, Scott, I'll throw it back to you. What do you think?
This is great points that both you and Dawn are making. So for all of our attendees out there that are still storing paper, it is costing you money. Whether it's the office space that you are leasing, whether it's an offsite storage or an offsite storage company like Iron Mountain, that's money that you're wasting that you could save. And for Iron Mountain or other storage services, when you have to retrieve documents, that's going to cost money as well, and it's going to take time, and that's going to prevent you from responding to the customer quickly. So there's a huge value both in hard cost savings, including storage space, as also soft cost savings, productivity. If you're going to ask your staff to scan documents, you've got to give them the right tools. Relegating them to an MFP or an all-in-one is going to create even more madness and chaos, because those products are just hard to use. You want to give your employees, and you want to recommend the right scanners for your clients so they can quickly and effectively scan their documents. And that's what it's all about. If you can implement these practices at your customers or with your own firm, it's simply going to make you better. All right, I think we've got a poll question coming up. So let's go back to our poll questions. And it's going to be, what is the biggest challenge? What is your biggest challenge with paper documents? So I'm going to open up that poll question now. Let's hear from you about your biggest challenge.
I know I'll just jump in while we're letting people answer the question, but I know for me, paper, I have to have, like right now, there's not a piece of paper on my desk. And when I'm ready to start a tax return, because I still believe in paper, I believe in printing the paper out. I believe in my red pencil. I still believe in my red pencil to tick and tie things. But I find that paper causes chaos. And if I have more than one client's tax return on my desk, I feel overwhelmed. I'm not concentrating. I need to be concentrating on one thing at a time. And that's where, if you look around here, this is a depreciation schedule I was working on yesterday. So I'm making sure I get that all tied in, ready for 2024. But you don't see papers just laying around in my office. I just don't do it. There's two reasons, honestly, I think. Number one is productivity purposes. I find with that clear mind, with a clear desk is really, really great. And I also think that as we are working through in tax season, we already have so many other distractions. It's one less distraction for you when you're focused on one thing at a time. And I find, clutter causes chaos. That's just me.
Agreed. Don, clutter does cause chaos. And so we've got a lot of great responses, really. So the time spent scanning and organizing is the number one response by a 2-to-1 margin. So that's a problem that ScanSnap and SmartVault solve. With ScanSnap, you're literally loading documents, selecting a profile, and hitting a button, and that's all you're doing. Our integration with SmartVault is exceptional because it allows you to actually choose a SmartVault folder and you can scan directly into it. So you're not moving files around. At the end of the day, it just means you can quickly accomplish that task. Storage space came up as well. SmartVault is going to store all of your documents in a secure way, achieving those security standards that Alex had mentioned earlier. And that's important because with all of the CCPAT in California and other compliance initiatives, you've got to protect that sensitive customer data. And you can do that with this solution. And 20% of you talked about the client resistance to digital options. It happens. As Don mentioned, we want to get our customers trained to send us in those files digitally, but those files need to be clear and legible. So they've got to use the right technology if that information is on paper that's being sent into your firm. And that's ScanSnap's job. It can do a great job to clearly capture the true fidelity of every document. So great to see these responses. This certainly echoes what we hear from other customers. Again, there is a great solution out there. Not all capture solutions are equal, so it's important to use the right scanner and the right service, and that's why the combination of ScanSnap and SmartVault is key. All right, we'll close this question, and we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about ScanSnap. And I've mentioned a lot of the benefits already, as well as Alex and Don. It's about removing all of that clutter that causes chaos. Don, I'm going to use that if that's okay.
You can have it whatever you want, Scott, no problem.
Thank you very much. Studies show that employees are spending half of their time in the office simply finding information. That is the largest time drain. And by the way, other studies show that when employees can't find information, they just make decisions without data. And that's a bad thing as well, especially when we're talking about tax and accounting. Being able to find information quickly and effectively is huge. Being able to communicate more effectively. With this solution, you can literally send your client a URL right into SmartVault to a certain document. It takes seconds. You don't have to print. There's no faxing, copying. It's an easy way to communicate. And the images will be clear. If there's color content, it will have all of that color information so you can see that document in full color. It's just the most professional way to communicate. It's the most secure way to communicate as well. At the end of the day, it just allows you to run your business faster with higher productivity. And that's what you need, especially during the productive season.
That's right.
And improve customer service, right? It's all about making customers happy, which means they're going to recommend you to all of their peers. They're going to stay with you longer. So these are all great points. If you haven't seen ScanSnap, but I'm sure many of you on this webcast are using ScanSnap already, but if you haven't seen ScanSnap, this is the IX1600. By the way, this is the one we're going to give out at the end of the webcast, so make sure to tune in to the end. It's about the size of a shoebox. It's easy to reach. You can put it right on your desk. So when people come in with those documents, you can scan them right from your desktop. You don't have to walk over to an MFP. It's lightning fast, and it's got some really great intelligent features that are just automatic. That means you don't have to be a scanning expert. You can load your documents, select a profile right into SmartVault, and hit the scan button, and you're done. ScanSnap is going to race through those documents. You don't have to babysit or watch over the scanner to make sure that the images are quickly scanned. They will fly through the scanner, and they're in SmartVault. And from there, you're ready to use them. It's reliable. It's fast. We've got customers that have kept on to the same ScanSnap model they've purchased for well over 10 years. So an investment in ScanSnap is going to pay off and last a long time. It really is the most trusted scanner for accounting firms worldwide. For all of our customers, we've sold over 7 million units. It's by far the #1 scanner in the industry for small business. So I talked about intelligent processing. Well, what does that mean? You know, everything has AI. That's what we hear today. Well, ScanSnap has had AI for over 20 years. And when you scan a document, ScanSnap will analyze every single page and treat it based on what the content is. So first, we'll do an auto size detection. If you're scanning letter, legal, smaller sizes, all mixed in the same batch, you don't have to change any settings. ScanSnap will understand the page size and crop it to just the size of the image. If you scan your documents in upside down or right side up, that's not a problem as well. ScanSnap will auto-rotate the documents to make sure everything is right side up. And that works with landscape and portrait pages as well. I mentioned color content. If your document has color, we'll use a color setting. If it has monochrome, just black and white, we'll use black and white. That gives you the best image quality and the smallest file size. So if you're going to email a large document to your customer, it's going to be smaller than if you just scanned it all in color, for instance. It's going to have the best image quality. We will straighten the document out if it's skewed. We'll remove blank pages. The IX1600 has a dual camera system, so we're going to capture both sides of the document. If we see a blank page, we'll toss it out. That way you don't have to deal with blank pages. Everyone hates printing a document with blank pages, so we take care of that as well. It really is scanning in a snap. And it's cross-platform, so if you want to use ScanSnap on your Windows or Mac computer, no problem. We've got support for both. You could also use it with your device with iOS, Android, and now even Chrome OS. So if you've got Chromebooks out there, we support that as well. You can even scan directly to the cloud. You can see our wireless models here on this page with the wireless logo. They all support that direct-to-scanning capability. We also have the IX1400, which is what we call ScanSnap Classic. It has a single blue button. If you want to give a scanner to your customers who are not IT savvy, let's set up the IX1400, and that big blue button will send documents right into SmartVault. We even have an SV600, which is a specialized scanner. You can scan things like bound documents and books. So if you've got some old journals that need to be captured or just some really fragile documents, the SV600 is for you. All right, Alex is going to talk about the integration in just a bit, but it really is an exceptional integration because it goes right into a SmartVault folder. And this is what it looks like on your screen. So the touchscreen display of the iX1600 is going to show those profiles. In this screen, I've got the SmartVault toolbar and the inbox set up. You can scan directly into SmartVault or scan directly into QuickBooks under your SmartVault login. So we support both ways to scan into SmartVault using QuickBooks. This is a great solution. It's easy. Again, you're just loading documents, selecting a profile and hitting that blue button, and you're ready to go. All right, before we take it back over to Alex, let's go into our next question. What percentage of your clients are still submitting paper documents?
Yeah, I'm definitely an A. I'm an A.
You've done well there, Dawn. You've done well.
Yeah, we've like I said, I mean, we lead with the technology at every single client that comes on board, and it's very rare that we're finding people who are resistant to it. So, you know, again, people still do drop off. They drop off here at my office, and the first thing that happens in the morning, if somebody drops off, they get that stuff all gets scanned first thing in the morning, because Tracy hounds me because she'll say, John just said he dropped off the documents. Why aren't they in SmartVault yet? I'm like, because he just left 2 minutes ago. Give me a second. You know, we crack up about it. But, you know, she's just the one who's on top of things and knows where things need to be. And that's something, you know, as I talk a little bit more about my story, I want to definitely talk about consistency with when you're working with SmartVault.
Great. And this would be a good time, Dawn, for me to mention that you also provide coaching services. So if you want to be like Dawn and get into A, contact her. I think you've got a lot of great tips and tools to increase everyone's productivity.
Well, yeah, and I want them to, you know, don't just subscribe to SmartVault, but actually implement it and use it. And any of the technologies that we have that I recommend all the time, it's like I just find that people have trouble getting over the finish line, and that's where I try to help people through that process, what makes sense, and just coaching them through. You know, because I mean, I want everybody to work a 25-hour work week during tax season and still, you know, be able to make plenty of money to do the things you want to do and bless people you want to bless, and you know, that's the whole goal.
And just to
Agreed.
tag on that as well, we actually have folder template structures that Dawn uses that you can actually copy into your own SmartVault account as well. So we do have those available as well. But
yep, anything to help the
Scott.
people.
Yeah.
That's a great tip. A much better way to get up to speed quickly. All right, looking at those responses. So 23% are just like Dawn. 0 to 25% are submitting on paper. But as we go up from there, 23%, an equal amount, are in section B, 26 to 50%. Section C, 27%, and section D, over 75%, 27%. If you are in any of these sections, especially B, C, and D, you need ScanSnap. This is the best way to capture those documents quickly and satisfy and deal with those low-tech customers. And again, there's a great opportunity to get ScanSnap for your clients. You may want to buy a ScanSnap for your largest clients just to save you time and make a better impression on them. But again, being able to use ScanSnap to digitize that paper is what's going to make everything behind it work so much better. And SmartVault is the perfect complement to manage those digital files. All right, so I'll go ahead and close this question. And Alex, I'm going to turn it back over to you to talk about the integration between ScanSnap and SmartVault.
Thanks, Scott. So I'll just take up a minute or two just to let you know a little bit more about SmartVault as well. So for those of you who are not aware of SmartVault, we offer secure cloud-based document management and client portals, which are specifically built for the unique compliance and workflow needs of the accounting industry. We're based in Houston, Texas, so forgive the British accent, but we are based in Houston. And over the last 16 years, we've been building key integrations with a lot of the leading accounting apps. So I won't do a full list, but that includes Lacert, Pro Series, Pro Connect, UltraTax, Lisio, of course, ScanSnap, one of our favorites, and lots more. And just calling out that during the last tax season, we had 100% uptime as well, and over 50 million documents downloaded last tax season, which is amazing, and over 160,000 e-signatures requested. So really, we just enable you to keep your client data secure within this efficient, streamlined document workflow. Next slide, please. Awesome, thank you. So what is the reason you might implement SmartVault? So we've had a lot of client feedback, and some of the top ones are, it's easy to use, enables you to share files securely, automates key workflows, especially with the tax software integrations that I've literally just been talking about. Also reduces security vulnerabilities, and takes the stress out of compliance as well. So it's worth noting at this point as well that we do have US-based support. So that's whether you have an issue during tax season that you just need help quickly with, or if you want to use us to help migrate your documents from your current provider, we can also do that as well, all with our Texas team. Dawn, just super quickly, I know you've been using SmartVault for a long time, you're the OG. So do these reasons ring true?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, thinking about, and we'll talk a little bit through my story in a little bit, but it's just such an easy thing to use. And somebody had asked a question, and I think it's relevant to my answer here. How does SmartVault compare to DocStar, Eclipse, or other tools that may be out there that look similar? I want to say similar with air quotes, because with SmartVault, because there is direct integration, there's a direct integration with ScanSnap, there's a direct integration with Lacert, Pro Series, Drake. I don't know all of the tax ones off the top of my head, but those are a few of the high ones that a lot of people use. I'm not saying that if you don't have a tax software that directly, and I say directly, I mean directly from like Lacert and Pro Series and Drake, you still can use it because SmartVault has an awesome inbox capability that still you can scan, like you were saying before. You can print to PDF, which will print directly to SmartVault. So there's a SmartVault drive, print driver. There's all kinds of other things. But I find that because of SmartVault's direct integration, we're not printing to a PDF and then dragging and dropping it. It's all being pushed where it needs to be pushed from a tax perspective. It allows not only our tax world, but our bookkeeping world lives in the same spot. So there's a business that has a folder for ABC company, and at the top of that has a bookkeeping folder, and everything that has to do with the bookkeeper's world lives in there. But the tax person then has that access to the bookkeeping records if they need it at all, as they're either preparing a return or they're doing tax planning or business planning, forecasting, budgeting, whatever it may be. Everybody gets to play together. And that was really a critical for me, since I was running a bookkeeping firm that turned into a tax firm with tax representation. We had to solve from the beginning, we were going to set up our structure. So the key workflows, e-signing is like fantastic. It takes that stress out of compliance, but I don't want to take away from the story. So that's about all I will say about that for now.
Thanks, Dawn. Really appreciate you and your opinions. That's awesome. So thank you so much. So just diving a little bit deeper into the ScanSnap and SmartVault integration. I know Scott mentioned it earlier on. So it's really the easy way to help you streamline that digitization of paper that we've just been talking about. The challenge was that you needed to get it quickly and digitized easily. This is the solution. So it means you can really quickly scan a paper document through ScanSnap and have it saved directly into your preferred folder in SmartVault. That is the game changer, and it's a real time saver. Scott, what do you think?
I think this is one of our best integrations yet. And the reason why is that Our two-way communication with SmartVault allows us to understand the client's unique SmartVault folder structure. And essentially, you're in a client folder in SmartVault, you hit the button to scan the documents, you load the documents in ScanSnap and hit the button, and they go right into the folder you're in. You can see that middle window that can be used. It's just fast. It's fast and reliable. And so when we've got documents to scan, we want that process to be quick and easy, especially if we're hiring temporary help for the tax season. And with this integration, it is. Just choose your SmartVault folder and then initiate scanning from ScanSnap, and the documents go right into that folder. All right. So we are getting closer. We're going to hear from Dawn next about how her firm uses ScanSnap, but let's do another poll question. What's holding you back from going paperless? So let's go ahead and launch that question for the audience.
Yeah, my
And
favorite thing about this one, Scott,
yeah,
is that totally appreciate, respect, and understand those firms who are so far from being paperless that I think the fear kind of takes over, and instead of having a reasonable mind about it, we have like a little bit of a panic mind because we think about the cost of the technology. Now, for me, the cost of the technology, the offset of the amount of time that I save looking for things, chasing things down, can't figure out where things are, that's a huge cost for me of my time. The implementation time, we understand things take time to implement. We get that. This is probably one of the easiest implementations of technology that I've ever done. Obviously, many people know I have a huge tech stack, and some were much more complicated than moving to a SmartVault folder structure was absolutely worth the implementation time and the investment to think it through. Staff training, I think people would be surprised at how quickly your staff can, you know, pick up a piece of paper, throw it into a thing, and have it scanned into a folder. I mean, give them more credit. I always say, I understand they're going to need a little bit of training, but if you can set it up and be consistent with it and and we'll talk about the folder structure in a little bit, you're going to find your staff is going to love you for it because they're able to find things quicker and faster. And then the clients, believe me, I think we make a lot of assumptions that clients aren't going to want to be paperless. They're not going to want to have to, go into a portal. Trust me, they're already doing it. I know for myself, I go on to, can you pick up your phone and open up an app? I open up my Bank of America app every single morning. People look and check their checkbooks. They use apps for everything. And so don't be afraid of the fact that a client may be challenged in the adoption side. That's just us making assumptions. My clients will never do it, but that's not a thing.
And super quickly on the implementation as well for SmartVault, we've actually had customers that, implement in February, March for that tax season. So, it is really quite easy to implement. We have quick start training, loads of ways to get onboarded with our customer success team. So it is really quickly. You can do it anytime.
great point. And the ScanSnap installation itself is about 15 minutes. The SmartVault integration, it just adds another 2 or 3 minutes to that. So it's very fast. The 18% of respondents on this question talked about the cost of technology. Using SmartVault and ScanSnap is going to pay for itself quickly. How fast? It could be within just a couple of weeks. What is the value of saving 20 hours of payroll, right? So labor is always going to be the most expensive cost of your business. And so being able to simply save time, that is going to save you money. It's going to increase your productivity, your customer service, all of the points that we've touched on. Don talked about implementation time. This was one of the easiest solutions in terms of implementing it. We know that tax season is coming up soon. It's not too late. It is not too late to do it. Staff training. This is a very easy to use solution. And that big one, client adoption. I think Don gave us some great wisdom and guidance from having done this for a long time. Simply put, my thought on this one is that you can match your customers where they're at. What does that mean? It means if they're not willing to scan documents at their own facility, you can use ScanSnap to scan them when they come into yours, but feel free to add additional charges for providing that value. If your clients refuse to upload documents into SmartVault, you can still use SmartVault to manage their files so you are productive. You are fast and efficient in how you process their information. You're never going to lose it. You're going to organize it so much better. And as Don mentioned, again, I'll just make it again. Don't assume that your clients won't do this. In fact, maybe you start it for them, and then after a while, what I've seen is once you send your client a couple of hyperlinks that go right to their documents, they get it. They get how easy it is because they don't want to search for paper either. They just want to access information fast and efficiently. When you look at scans from ScanSnap, they have great image quality. They're color rich if there's color content. They look amazing. ScanSnap just gives you the true fidelity of the documents. And with the SmartVault solution combined, it's just a great solution. So there are answers to all of these responses, and SmartVault and ScanSnap have them for you. And with Don's wisdom and coaching, you can elevate your tax preparation firm to that next level. All right, I'm going to close this question and display. And Don, we're going to segue over to you. So, you've made a lot of great points, but let's hear more about your how you use the technology in your firm.
Yeah, sure. Like I said before, and I always reiterate, the paper causes chaos in my life. I don't like to have papers all around. So from the beginning of I call Powerful Accounting V3, when I left the partnership that was not digital in any way, shape, or form and started back on my own again, I knew I wanted to have everything in the cloud. I knew that I wanted to have the ability to work from wherever I was at any time, anywhere. Which was a restriction I didn't have before. Like I didn't have the ability to do that before. I was restricted from being able to work from home or, take a vacation with my family and, maybe work a couple hours a day here and there. And so I had to make sure that I was able to do that. Because of those efficiencies, because we became so efficient, the time it takes us to prepare a tax return is like just a snaps of a finger. Well, I want to walk through what would be maybe a perfect scenario for someone who's in tax or even in bookkeeping, but specifically tax. Just imagine your day that you come into your office and you see that you have 5 tax returns to do because hopefully you have a project management tool. And you go ahead and you say, I've got these 5 returns to do. And they're only in the queue ready to go because Tracy's confirmed all the documents have been uploaded into the SmartVault vault. I'll go in, I'll take those beautiful PDFs and I drag and drop them into Gruntworks. And I do it for those 5 clients. And I've got a perfect system. Great. Drop those 5 in there. And now I move on and maybe I've got an in-house tax return to do. So I've got maybe an S Corp return. I've got a couple of those ready. Okay, so while Gruntworks is doing the individual returns, I then take my S Corp, start working on it. I finish the S Corp return, I hit a print button, everything goes into SmartVault. The tax returns go in the right folders, and then I go ahead from there and I go ahead and I highlight the 8879 and I print that over to SmartVault. And then I go, bang, done. I send that off to the shareholder or whoever it is that I deal with on that level, send that 8879 over. And then when I'm done with that, I grab those 5 individuals out of Gruntworks and populate them into Lacert. Lacert does its thing. I do a review. I pull up the documents in my SmartVault folder because I've taken them out of Gruntworks and put them in all organized into SmartVault, and I review the tax return. And all I'm doing, as you can notice, is I'm being productive. So if you can set your processes up in a way that you as a preparer especially, you're only touching stuff when you're actually preparing returns. That's productivity. When you're preparing returns, you're being productive. When you're dealing with, let me go get the folder for the client. And then you go walk over to the file cabinet and you grab the folder out of there. And then you kind of like look through the documents. And you're like, oh, they might be missing something. And let me get on touch with the client. And my process is so manual. But if you can have this streaming, efficient model where you're scanning documents in, you're getting them into SmartVault, then you're dropping them into GruntWorks, then they're populating, you're just reviewing. You could do 7, 8, 10, 12 returns in 5 or 6 hours because you're not manually doing the data entry, which are, there's issues with that. And I know this isn't a GruntWorks webinar, but you can see where that workflow and that efficiency, and then the client, you send a link to the return. We're using Lisio this year. We'll drag and drop that return into Lisio and it will deliver that tax return and get all the signatures and do it automatically. I'm doing even less work this year than I've done in any other year. So I'm seeing if maybe my goal can be 4 hours a day because I want to be done. Like, I don't like to come in before 10. It's like 10 to 2 is like that's my best time of the day, working 10 to 2, and then I'm off on the golf course or I'm off on my boat. So those types of things can happen. The time and cost savings, and this is one of the biggest points, the time and costs, and I know we've got a lot of questions, so I don't want to take up all the rest of the time, but is one of the key components was consistency. What do I mean by that? When you define a folder structure, what you need to do, define a folder structure that, by the way, is extremely consistent. What do I mean by that? I mean, every client has the same folders in the same order, and documents go into certain folders for every client. So a client's going to upload to a tax upload folder in SmartVault under their tax year that they're working on. So that's their spot to put documents. So we know if we're looking for something from someone, we go to that folder. Tracy doesn't have to ask me where they uploaded. I don't have to ask Nicole. That's the only folder they're allowed to upload to, so they can't miss. That's kind of what we say. They can't miss it because it's only one place. We give them permission to upload. Well, if I've got work papers, I got book to tax worksheets, I've got other things. Again, I love my red pencil. I got work papers that I need to upload to SmartVault. They all go into the tax return folder that only Powerful Accounting has access to. Client doesn't have access to that folder. That's none of their business. They don't need to know the work papers. We're not required to turn them over, so they don't get access to that. Then they have their client folder where their engagement letter and everything is in there. Their organizer is in there. Their client tax copy is in there. They know that's where they find it because we have consistency. So when you're thinking through that, the time savings on people, some of you maybe, I'm curious how large your firms are. It doesn't matter if you're one person or 100 or 1,000, having a consistent workflow for yourself, if you're a sole prop, having a consistent workflow if you have others working with you is critical. So I saved a lot of time and a lot of money because I implemented this system. My staff loved it. My clients love it. They know where their stuff is. They ever need to go, they want to get a new mortgage or they want to buy a car. They don't need to come to us. Everything is in SmartVault, consistent for every year. Everybody's the same. And we do prefer the iX 1600. I love that scanner. I have it right here. I'm petting it. It's right here next to me. She's always here for me. And everything gets scanned in there. As an IRS I do a lot of IRS representation. When notices come in, I need to manage those notices. They immediately go into SmartVault. They immediately get scanned, put into their IRS resolution folder so that I can make sure I'm managing those notices from there. But it has not only saved us time, it saved us money. But for me, the time is more important, to be honest with you. I'm at a point in my life where the time is more important than the money. And so I want to be able to grab more of my time back. And if I decide to grow my firm, I can. If I don't want to grow, I at least know that I'm working as hard as I can for the clients that I have securely. They're able to get me everything that they need. And it is life-changing. And I can tell you right now, the process is worth it. The investment is worth it. And now is no better time than right now to say, I'm going to get my ScanSnap, I'm going to get SmartVault, and for 24, I'm going to start becoming paperless and let it be a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's something you could start now for this tax year, and we'll worry about the other stuff in your file cabinets after tax season, and can help you move through that process. So I want to get to the questions, though I don't want to waste all the time on me.
Dot, again, it's always great to talk to you and have you on the webinars, because time is the most valuable thing. If you really think deeply, everyone wants more time. And using technology like ScanSnap and SmartVault simply gives people more time. And then you can choose, do you want to focus on using that time for more business? Or do you want to take that personally? ScanSnap and SmartVault give you that ability. Well, great. So now we're at the QA section, but we're almost at the top of the hour. So first, Dawn, Alex, and I will go through all of the questions that we don't address, and we will respond to you directly, which will give you a chance for follow-up questions. There were several questions in the QA section about how do I install this with ScanSnap? How do I use ScanSnap? No problem. Our support number is 1-800-626-4686. So again, that's 1-800 626-4686 option 2. And we'll put that into the post-event follow-up in case you didn't get a chance to write that down on paper. But call into our tech support department. We've got you covered. You're going to talk to someone who's using ScanSnap. We'll walk you through the process. If you asked a question,
just super
yes.
quickly as well, I know that we have a customer success team. So if you are a customer of SmartVault, they'll help you set that up as well. And we have lots of documentation on how to implement it as well on our SmartVault Academy.
Great. Perfect. Yeah, and I've been on your website, Alex. You guys have a lot of great support tools, including a section on setting up ScanSnap. If you asked a question today about setting up SmartVault with ScanSnap, I will reply to you directly. And I'm happy to do a quick WebEx where we just open up the screen and I'll show you how to do it right on my computer. So you can do it as well. So we are here to help. So let's look at a couple of questions and then we're going to get to the live drawing for that free iX 1600. So I'm going to go over to the QA section. I did take a peek earlier. Dawn, there's one question to you about if you scan documents, do you shred them on site or do you shred those documents using a third-party service?
So here's my bucket right here. This is my shredding bucket. So I have a shredding bucket. And then I have a college kid who comes over, cleans the office, and she'll shred on site here. And it's the cross cutters, the extra cross cutters. And then we just put it in the recycle bin after it's shredded. And honestly, most of our clients do send us stuff electronically. There's not a ton of paper that runs through, except for mostly like the notices or things like that. But for the most part, people are uploading. But I bring someone in to do that.
Awesome. All right. And I'm just scanning through the questions to see here. Alex, there's one about AI. Is it possible to be able to ask SmartVault questions using natural language inquiries?
So not yet. I know we do have some potential integrations, but nothing just yet that I can talk about. But stay tuned.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is on the horizon. And a tip we make to customers, if you're planning to use next generation AI, you need data. Data is what makes AI smarter. And so scanning all of your documents with a high quality device like ScanSnap is going to give AI the image quality it demands to give accurate answers. Here's another question. Is there a cost for the ScanSnap SmartVault integration? I can take that one. No, there's no cost. It's included with the price of SmartVault and ScanSnap. It's just a plugin that you download and install. And from there, you can make your profile to put those profiles right on the screen. All right. So we're just 2 minutes to the top of the hour. So again, we're going to come back and we'll answer all the questions that we didn't address. If you didn't pose your question today, when you get the post-event email with a link to today's recording, just let us know your question. We are here to address them moving forward. So with that, I'm going to ask my events coordinator to look at our live attendees at this point and select a lucky winner for ScanSnap. And so I'm going to go into here and let's see what we've got. Okay, so looking for that winner. And let's see, is it coming in? Hang on a sec. All right. I think we're using the And here it is, Annette Hill. Congratulations. You have won a ScanSnap iX 1600. Looking forward to sharing that with you. Call us up and we'll show you how to install it if you don't have ScanSnaps already. And for those of you who didn't win, you can see the QR code right on the screen. You can get a $40 rebate on the iX 1600. So please use it. As I mentioned, use it for your customers as well. So a final question for today's webcast, would you like to learn more? So I'm going to go back and I'm going to launch that final question. It might be open already, but I'm going to display it. Let us know if you'd like to learn more. And I want to say thank you again for attending today's webinar. Alex, Dawn, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. And thank you to the audience as well. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Looking forward to the next webcast. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.